Okay, guys, this is a video with an introduction to Trig. And we did a cute little video of getting triggy with it, but now let's go over what this actually is. So we're going to start Camp Sokotoa. All right. So we have we have a total of 6, but we have three main trig functions. We have sine, we have cosine, and we have tangent. And SOHCAHTOA is a mnemonic device to help you remember which goes with which. So sine would be opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay? Now, as we learned studying Pythagorean theorem, the most important is the hypotenuse. That one can't change. Adjacent and opposite will change based on what angle you are looking at. So we're always going to want to label our picture. That's going to be the key piece. And just like with Pythagorean theorem, we use SOHCAHTOA, we use the trig pieces when we're solving right triangles. So in the case where we're only given one side instead of two sides, because we need two sides to find the third side with Pythagorean theorem, we would use trig. All right, so I have this first example here, sine. All right, we are going to, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and sine A. So they want me to focus on A, okay? So I know C is my hypotenuse. Based on A, if I travel across, that gets me to my opposite. And if it touches, if it forms an angle with the item I'm looking at, so side B forms an angle up here with me, with my hypotenuse, that is the adjacent. So when I'm looking for sine, of A, that's going to be the opposite, which is lowercase a. Remember that sides are lowercase and angles are capital. And then the hypotenuse is C. Okay? And I'm going to then work with cosine, and then I'll come back to sine B because I have to erase, because that changes my adjacent and my opposite. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so cosine A, again, I'm looking here, and I want the adjacent. Well, the adjacent side is B. So B over the hypotenuse, which is C. All right? And then tangent is opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of A is going to be the opposite, which is A. Again, this is why I label my picture with the vocabulary words. It makes it so much easier. A over B. Now I'm going to erase because now I'm going to look at angle B. And remember, my angle determines my opposite and my adjacent. My hypotenuse is not going to change. My hypotenuse will stay as letter C. So I'm focusing on letter B here. Here's letter B. And when I go across the triangle, the side that I touch is B. So that's going to be my opposite. And the side that forms an angle with B is going to be my adjacent. Which means when I do the sine of B, I'm going to do opposite over hypotenuse. So my opposite is B and my hypotenuse is C. And then when I do cosine, I'm going to do adjacent, which is A, over the hypotenuse, which is C. For tangent of B, my opposite is B and my adjacent is A. Okay? So the key to this is label, label, label. Start with your hypotenuse, and then your opposite and your adjacent, just like the legs, can change based on what angle you're talking about. All right, let's move forward. Maybe, let's see. There we go. Okay, so again, this is the same, just in a different image. So we have sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent equals opposite over adjacent. Okay, for this one, we're just going to write our ratio. So in this picture, we're going to use SOHCAHTOA. They want me to find the ratio for A, for the sine. I'm just doing sine. I should have put sine in the direction. So I want the sine of A. So here is A. This is going to be my hypotenuse. My opposite is here. And my adjacent is here. So if I want the sine, it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine, and we can do capital A, or notice that it's labeled with theta, that symbol. Let me draw that symbol. That symbol is called theta. And on Monday, we're going to go over how to find sine of theta, or actually later in a couple screens we will. Okay, so opposite is 12, and then the hypotenuse is 37. So that's the ratio for that particular picture. Now I'm going to do cosine. All right, for this image, I want to find cosine of x. So here's x, okay? Again, my hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. My opposite is across from the angle that I'm talking about. In this case, it's x. So this is my opposite. And then the adjacent touches it, adjacent. So for cosine, I want adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to do x equals my adjacent, which is 8 over 10. So cosine of x is 8 over 10. All right, last one is let's look at tangent. Okay, so this one was okay, this is fine. So tangent of k. Here's angle k. Across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. Opposite is 21. Adjacent is 20. Because notice, this line touches my angle that I'm referring to, my reference. So it's going to be opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of K is going to be 21 over 20, my opposite over my adjacent. All right, so once you have the tangent ratios down, it makes it nice and easy to find the angle. So we're going to practice finding an angle, and then I'm going to have you do one on your own. So, or missing side. So we want this angle here, okay? And we have some things already marked. So I'm going to go ahead and label, this is my hypotenuse, this is my opposite, and this is my adjacent. Now, I need two of the three elements. I need two of three elements, okay? Have to be numerical. They can't be a variable. So I know I have x degrees that I'm looking for. And when I go to opposite, there's nothing there, so I'm not going to use it. But adjacent and hypotenuse are labeled, so I'm going to use adjacent and hypotenuse. And when I go and look at my SOHCAHTOA, the one that has adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So this is going to be cosine x equals 38 over 49, okay? And I need to get rid of cosine. Remember a couple weeks ago, I told you that all the inverses they share the same button. You just do shift. So if you do shift cosine, that brings up cosine -1. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. Okay, so then when I type that in my calculator, and let me type it in my calculator real quick. I'm not going to pull up the calculator on here, so I'm going to do second cosine, and I'm going to do 38 divided by 49, close my parenthesis. I get 39 degrees. So that's the value of x. All right, let's look at another one. Okay, so this is my angle that's referenced. This is hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. And when I drive across, this is opposite, and this line touches my angle, so it must be adjacent. Well, adjacent has nothing labeled on it, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use opposite, and I'm going to use hypotenuse. And when I look back at SOHCAHTOA, opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So the sine of 22 degrees is equal to W over 35. Well, I need to solve for W. What am I doing? I'm dividing. How do I undo it? Multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 35 on both sides. So I'm going to pick up my calculator. I'm going to do 35 sine 22, close my parenthesis, and I get 13. So W equals 13, and because it's a length of a side, I'm going to go to the nearest tenth, so 13.1. Just a little introduction. I would like you're going to go ahead and do a Pythagorean assignment in a group, and then if time permits, go ahead and try 2 more of the problems on the back of this worksheet. Thank you.